You have never been convicted of a felony, so you're legally allowed to possess a firearm, right? Well, that you know of, yeah, but I'm not a felon is not the test. An old juvenile case, a restraining order, a misdemeanor, or even your current legal status can put you on that prohibited persons list. Let's go through the major categories.
A felony conviction is a major disqualifier. If a person has been convicted of a felony under Oregon law, another state's law, or federal law, Oregon can bar that person from owning, possessing, having custody of, or controlling a firearm. But felony convictions are only one category. Oregon firearm law is also asking, is there anything in your legal status right now that blocks possession? A mental health condition by itself does not ban firearm possession. A diagnosis, therapy, or voluntary treatment is not enough. The firearm issue begins only when there is a qualifying court finding or order that bans firearms. A guilty, except for insanity finding, can also prohibit possession, but Oregon points to felony level cases, not merely any case where mental health came up in court. But a felony is not required. Domestic violence can also trigger a ban even when the conviction is a misdemeanor, but not every domestic violence misdemeanor qualifies. It generally must involve force, attempted force, or the threatened use of deadly weapon against someone in a protected relationship. A stalking conviction can prohibit possession of firearms and ammunition. And some other Oregon prohibitions reach ammunition too. Restraining orders can also trigger a prohibition, but only when the order meets specific legal requirements. And sometimes there is no criminal conviction at all. Oregon also has extreme risk protection orders, commonly called red flag orders. A law enforcement officer or certain family or household members can ask a court for one. That includes a spouse, intimate partner, parent, child, sibling, or someone living in the same household. The judge can issue the order without the person present, but the order cannot be enforced until it is served. Once the order is served, the person cannot own, possess, or control a deadly weapon. They also cannot buy, receive, or try to buy or receive one. They must surrender their firearms, other deadly weapons, and Oregon CHL within 24 hours after service. If police serve the order in person, they will ask for the weapons immediately. They have 30 days after being served to request a hearing, and the court must hold it within 21 days. The order lasts 1 year unless a judge ends it early. Renewal requires another hearing, and each renewal can last up to 1 year. Now this is where we get into the old record episode 3 warned us about. A juvenile case. People hear juvenile record and think sealed away. They think it's old news. I'm an adult now, so that part of my life is over. Oregon may not look at it that way. Oregon's unlawful possession rule can reach someone who was placed under juvenile court jurisdiction while still a minor. It applies when the underlying conduct would have been an adult felony or a misdemeanor involving violence. And the prohibition does not automatically disappear when a person turns 18. It can continue for 4 years after the person is discharged from juvenile court jurisdiction. So the important date is not the 18th birthday. It is the date juvenile court jurisdiction ended. A person can walk into a gun counter thinking their life moved on, their record is clean, and the old issue is buried. Then the background check looks at the actual legal record. That is where Fix, the background check system from the last episode, comes back into the story. But now here we hit the federal side. The federal list overlaps heavily with what we already covered. Felony level convictions, formal mental health findings and commitments, qualifying restraining orders, and misdemeanor domestic violence. The differences are where people get surprised. Federal law also prohibits fugitives, unlawful users of controlled substances, people unlawfully in the US, many people admitted under non-immigrant visas, anyone dishonorably discharged from the military, and anyone who renounced U.S. citizenship. The controlled substance rule is why marijuana can still create a federal firearm problem even when Oregon law allows its use. An arrest by itself does not automatically make someone federally prohibited. A felony indictment can block someone from receiving a firearm while the case is pending, but that is different from the federal possession ban. So once again, I'm not a felon does not answer the question. Oregon law and federal law each have their own ways of putting someone on the prohibited list. If any of this applies to you or someone you know, it can be especially difficult when everything happened years ago. You think, it's been over a decade. I work. I have a family. I pay my taxes. I'm responsible. Are my rights gone forever? Not always. For some people, yes, but depending on why someone is prohibited, Oregon may provide a path to rights restoration. Get the records, get the paperwork, and talk to an attorney who actually handles firearm rights restoration. The answer depends on the exact conviction, order, jurisdiction, and law creating the prohibition. But until those rights are legally restored, the problem goes beyond physically carrying a gun. Simply being near another person's firearm does not automatically mean you possess it, but ownership is not the only thing that matters. Where the gun is placed, who controls that space, and who has the right to control the firearm can completely change the answer.
And that brings us directly into the final episode. Imagine you are prohibited from possessing a firearm. You're driving and your passenger is legally carrying one. Now the police lights come on behind. What do? And the gun is technically sitting within your reach. Whose possession is it then? You'd be surprised. In the final episode, we answer that question. Then we break down driving with a gun in Oregon and what changes when those police lights come on behind you.